Total Screen proudly presents their official podcast, On Screen, with your hosts, Tyson Gifford and William Rohrig. Everybody, and welcome to On Screen, the official podcast of the Total Screen. My name is Tyson.
My name is Will.
And today we are going to be talking about Spider-Noir. This is the 8-episode Nicolas Cage starring Steve Littlefoot showrun series in the Spider-Man pantheon that takes place in the noir setting. It's available to watch in both black and white and color, and we're going to be talking about that in full spoilers. We've also got a few trailers to go over in our news segment on Beat, and of course, we've got some stuff to talk about that's coming up on the horizon in the next week or so. And that's where we're going to get started with our On the Horizon segment.
On the horizon. On the horizon.
The Agency is returning on Sunday, June 21st to Paramount Plus. This is it's like a CIA TV drama, but Michael Fassbender's in it. American Dad is returning on Fox on Sunday, June 21st. That used to be, for a while, they had switched over to like TBS or something, but it came back to Fox, I think, last season, and it's on Fox again this season. House of the Dragon, that's a big one. It was returning on Sunday, June 21st on HBO, of course, HBO Max as well. Devil May Cry 5 Devil Hunter Edition, the digital version, is coming on Tuesday, June 23rd to the Switch 2. This is information we learned last week. In the Hand of Dante, which is a movie that stars Oscar Isaac, and it's about them trying to steal a handwritten copy of The Divine Comedy by Dante. That's coming on Wednesday, June 24th to Netflix. Deltarune Chapter 5 is coming on Wednesday, June 24th to PC, PS4, PS5, and Switch 2. Avatar: The Last Airbender is returning on Netflix on Thursday, June 25th. The Bear is returning for its final season, also on Thursday, June 25th for FX and Hulu. Star Fox is coming out on Thursday, June 25th on Switch 2. Life, Larry, and the Pursuit of Unhappiness, a new limited series, is coming to HBO on Friday, June 26th. And Little Brother, which is a movie that stars John Cena and Eric Andre, is coming on Friday, June 26th to Netflix. And lastly, Supergirl is hitting theaters on Friday, June 26th. That is it for our On the Horizon segment, and now we're going to move on to On Beat. On Beat. On Beat is our news segment, and we've got 4 trailers to go over this week. We're going to start things off with something we just mentioned in our On the Horizon segment, and that is Life, Larry, and the Pursuit of Unhappiness. So, before talking about this trailer, what's your experience with Larry David? You've seen Seinfeld, I assume?
I've seen a bunch of Seinfeld.
Have you seen Curb?
Pretty much every episode. I've seen some Curb.
Okay. This is much more, I think, along the lines of Curb.
Right.
So, if you know who Larry David is, as Will and I do, basically he's the ultimate curmudgeon, and he gets into socially awkward situations, and that's like kind of the comedy and stuff that he creates. Life, Larry, and the Pursuit of Unhappiness is basically taking the concept of that and applying it to like American history. It's kind of almost like what was the Mel Brooks movie, The History of the World, you know?
Yeah, The History of the World, Part 1.
Except this is basically Larry David's version of that, and it's specifically about American history.
Yeah, it looks hilarious.
Yeah, it looks very Larry David.
Yeah, it looks very Larry David, yeah. Yeah, right, yeah, exactly.
Next up, we got a trailer for The Last House. This is kind of reminding me of that, like, what's that J.J. Abrams one called? Like, The End of Oak Street that got recently, like, has had some trailers out recently as well.
Yeah, well, this one is, like, similar as, like, another mystery box movie, but this one is different.
Yeah.
Because The End of Oak Street is, like, their entire town gets transported. This is some mysterious phenomenon is trapping these people in their house.
Mm-hmm. And it seems to be a bit more like where the other one's kind of like a family adventure kind of movie. This one seems to be more of like a psychological drama thriller kind of thing.
Yeah.
where it's going into kind of like, when it first showed it, like they figured out they couldn't get out of the house, and then it would say like, day 3, and then it would say like day 10 or something, and then it was like day 1000 and something, and it was like, Jesus Christ. And you can see outside, like, just basically nature is like reclaimed the entire street, and there's like bears and stuff walking around. There's scenes where they're like communicating with neighbors, like through their windows, holding up signs, and like the neighbors don't know what's going on either, and they're like wondering if it's happened across the whole world. But yeah, it looks interesting. It's good. It's like a survival, kind of post-apocalyptic survival story, but from a very different, like, context. Like, there isn't a zombie apocalypse or a disease or something. It's just a mysterious phenomenon. They don't have any idea what's happening.
Yeah, looks interesting.
Yeah. And Wagner Moya, who's the lead in it, he's good. He played Pablo Escobar in the TV show Narcos.
Yeah, oh, that's cool.
He's been getting a lot of movie roles recently, so it's good to see him doing more stuff. Next, we got Hotspot, which is this weird, like, European folklore meets cyberpunk kind of thing. Very strange.
Yeah, very strange. It's an interesting mix of, aesthetics, I guess. Like, I didn't quite know what to make of it, but it looked interesting. That's the thing. Like, it looked like, okay, well, they've never done this before.
You got your lead character with like a mullet and like a weird outfit and, just kind of looking like a little Euro trashy and stuff. And then there's like these cyberpunk elements start coming in. It's like, what the fuck's that? And then
Euro cyberpunk.
Yeah. And then there's this whole thing about folklore about like a witch or something. And it's like, wow, this is a interesting combination of ideas. But that is the trailer for Hotspot. And then lastly, we got a trailer that, I don't know, I mean, do you think anybody's even heard of this movie before, or this franchise? It just seems kind of, maybe we should just cut it. Because I don't think anybody knows what this is. But,
Italian Spider-Man.
Spider-Man, brand new day. We got trailer number 2. Gives us kind of a better idea of what's going on. Like the last trailer, the main kind of focus was we got to see a lot of flashes of things happening that we could piece together, like the hand and stuff like that. But the main thing that we got from the last trailer was this whole idea that Peter's mutating.
Yes.
And this one kind of got more into who the actual antagonist is. I mean, they didn't tell us who the antagonist is, but they shaped the antagonist, like, motivations, I guess, or like what they're trying to do through this trailer.
Right. Oh, yeah.
It also kind of gave us a better idea of what's going on with Punisher. It looked at first like he might just be having this kind of cameo based on like the first trailer. And it looks like he's going to have kind of a bigger role. Very similar to like the kind of role he would play in Daredevil, where like Daredevil would be like, oh, I need you to take care of Karen for a bit,
Right. Oh,
it's like babysitter Punisher,
Yeah, babysitter. That'd be freaking hilarious.
Your friendly neighborhood babysitter, the Punisher.
I'm glad like the Punisher is getting like a lot of play in this, because definitely interested to see like his relationship with Peter in this. Like,
because we haven't seen them meet yet, so we're gonna have that all the way through their relationship building, I guess.
Yeah, and then of course, there's the Hulk.
Grey Hulk, right?
Yeah, Grey Hulk, I think. Yeah, although he looked green in the trailer to me, so like I don't know if he's like what Hulk we're getting, but we're getting the Hulk.
Yeah, they did a good play in the trailer where they had the scene where he showed this technological bracelet he was wearing and said like, oh, if you see me without this, run, and he went, and to Peter, and it was like very playful and stuff. And then, of course, that was going to come into play later on, and it came into play in the trailer itself.
Right. Oh, yeah. And so basically it looks like Peter is changing, and so it looks like they're doing the other. This is weird storyline where, like, Peter becomes aware that he's part of, like, some mythical spider, like, lore or something, and he starts transforming more into a spider. And then there's, like, this villain Morlun that comes out of the woodwork, and, like, he fights him. And so I'm thinking, like, the mystery villain that we're seeing, people keep insisting it's Jean Grey, because it's Sasing or whatever, but, like, if they're doing this storyline, it sounds like it's Morlun.
I could see it being Jean Grey, because I don't have a lot of experience with Spider-Man comics, but I do remember in the animated series when he was like turning mutant and he was like interacting with the X-Men and stuff.
Yeah, there was that one storyline. That was way before Marvel came up with this whole Morlun storyline, though. That was ages before, because this was like in 2001. And the Spider-Man animated series was like the 90s.
I also saw somebody point out that one advantage of having Jean Grey in it, if she is in it, I don't know if she's the villain or not, she could just be in it, you know?
She could be in it, yeah. I don't think
she could be the
she's
solution
villain.
to everybody not remembering Peter.
Yeah.
Because she can, like, manipulate memories and stuff.
I don't think she's this mystery villain that they're
Mhm.
hiding in the trailers. I don't think that's Sadie Sink or Jean Grey. I definitely think this, like, hooded figure is, like, the main villain. They're hiding who it is from the audience, but I don't think it's who people think it is. Because I don't think Jean Grey would be controlling people and telling and threatening him with, like, oh, I'm going to meet MJ today. Like, that doesn't sound like a Jean Grey thing to do. Like, I don't know. Doesn't sound like her. Sounds pretty out of character.
Yeah, it is. It's interesting, though. Like, she's been heavily rumored to be playing Jean Grey even before the first trailer came out and anybody had really any idea what was going on. When we just
Right.
knew, oh, Sadie Sink's in the show and we didn't know what. That was the big rumor. Of course, initially there were a lot of people going, oh, I guess she's playing Mary Jane, not MJ, but Mary Jane because, you know, she's a redhead and stuff. But then it started moving more towards the idea that she might be Jean Grey. We also know that Marvel's going to start introducing more and more mutant elements into the story.
Yeah. And also,
So-
like, if they're doing this thing where Peter is turning more into, like, an actual spider and stuff in the story, they gotta do something connected to that. Jean
Mhm.
Grey is not going to be connected to that. So it's kind of like, okay.
Unless
like
they're doing it based
yeah,
on the idea of mutation, then she'd be connected in
Right.
that sense.
Right. Like they announced that Peter is actually a mutant at the end of the movie.
Yeah. Or that he
That's
thinks he might be a
interesting.
mutant, you know, but I mean, that'd be weird because there hasn't really
Yeah,
been
they-
public information about mutants. There's only been
Right,
like
yeah.
offhanded comments, kind of.
Yeah, like nobody knows what a mutant is, right?
Yeah.
As far as the MCU as it exists currently. Like, as far as we know, there's no X-Men. So, like, Peter would have no reason to think he's part of some special club of people.
Mm-hmm.
So-
Unless that
so,
comes
yeah.
into play like early in the movie and that's like
Yeah.
a through line. But we
Right.
don't have any information on that.
We got a lot of story content in this trailer. This was probably like the most informative trailer yet. I watched this, I'm kind of like, yeah, I'm good. I don't need to see any more about this movie. Probably gonna put out more trailers, but I'm like, no, I've seen everything I need to see.
Oh, come on. You need
I'm
to see the
just-
popcorn bucket.
Yeah, I need to see the popcorn bucket. You're right.
The bucket's going to be shaped like Peter Parker's arm, and it's going to have a top that covers the bucket. That's like his hand in the web slinger position.
Oh
And
yeah,
then-
it's gonna be the web.
And then you're
shooter.
going to open it up, and it's going to be like where the organic web shooter would be is where you get your popcorn out of.
He's got organic web shooters now.
Yeah, he's joining the Tobyverse.
Yep. Yeah, exactly.
They're going to rename
got-
the movie Spider-Man into the Tobyverse.
He's got organic web shooters now. One movie after Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man said, "Oh, you don't have those, do you?"
And he's all like, well, now I do, bitch.
Yeah, right.
So that is it for our trailer segment. That's it for our discussion on Spider-Man in the trailer segment. So what are we going to talk about now that we're done with Spider-Man?
I don't know. I just hope that we're not talking about more Spider-Man, because that would be lame.
Well, I guess we can talk about more Spider-Man.
Oh.
So now we're going to move on to full spoilers. This week on Full Spoilers, we are talking about Spider-Noir, the Nicolas Cage-led film noir kind of take on Spider-Man. So first, kind of broad impressions. What did you think? We'll say first, how did you watch it? And
I
what
watched
did you
it.
think?
I watched it in black and white, because I knew if I didn't, you'd yell at me.
That's right.
So I watched it in black and white. And to be honest, I enjoyed it. I didn't feel like I was missing anything not watching it in color. I might go back and rewatch it in color, but it's like I don't have this burning desire to be like, oh, I needed to see this in color.
It's film noir. It has to be seen in black and white.
The black and white was fine.
I think black and white was really good. I think
Yeah.
I don't know how much you're into film noir or how much you know about film noir, but I think the thing I like most about this series is also maybe my biggest complaint about the series at the same time. And that is like the visual aesthetic of the show. I think there are kind of different ways you can kind of do film noir from like a modern perspective. You could do it exactly how it was, like in the 50s and stuff when film noir was around, and kind of just completely replicate that style. You can do it in like a really exaggerated comic booky type way. Think like Sin City, something, you know, where it's just like they take the contrast even up a higher level. They do even crazier stuff with like the lighting contrast differences. And they really play into like these really dramatic kind of comic booky type angles that you wouldn't necessarily have in that way in like a film noir movie from the past. Or you can do like kind of neo-noir, which is like more modern film noir stuff. Even stuff like Veronica Mars is considered like neo-noir because it's like a detective story and you add in things like neon lights and stuff like that to the aesthetic, and it has kind of its whole own aesthetic. It's not even representative of film noir at all really at that point. It's just kind of a modernized version of it.
Uh-huh.
And I think that this show kind of does all three. And I think that might be my biggest issue with the show is that it does all three. Like I wish it kind of just picked the lane and really cemented on that, because when it's doing its traditional film noir stuff, it is absolutely beautiful. It absolutely looks like something of that era. It even does like kind of small things that are really noticeable. There's a transition in like the first episode where it shows the skyline and it transitions from like day to night. And the way the transition happened, it was this very kind of like in-camera, old-fashioned way of doing something like that, you know, predating what you would do with like CG or something. And it kind of has like a very traditional film noir look to it when it does that. It's like, oh, that's a kind of cool shot, but it's like also feels like something that plausibly could have been done before, you know, like before computers. And then it'll like do stuff that's just the very heightened kind of Sin City-esque type stuff. A lot of stuff when you see him with his mask in like dark shots where his eyes are like lit up and then it's just pitch blackness around him and stuff.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
It gives that very like Sin City kind of like ultra heightened version of kind of film noir. And I don't terribly mind too much when it switches between those two because I think those two are very close. What I really didn't like was when it took on these more like modern aspects. Like when, you know, you have the first scene where you see the singer, Kat, when she's like singing.
Yeah.
And it has this whole montage and he's watching her. It starts off very traditional, and then like her mannerisms start looking more like modern, and the music starts becoming more like modern and stuff. And it just kind of feels tonally off to me, like it's you kind of like lost the plot of what you were going for that film noir stuff. And that even extends to like the title sequence at the beginning with the music and the very ending sequence of the last episode with the music, where it's like it's taken this very modern approach, and I kind of just wish they hadn't. You know, it's kind of like that one episode of Game of Thrones where Jaime gets his hand cut off and like it cuts to the credits and starts playing like a punk song.
Oh yeah,
and
yeah.
It's like this is Game of Thrones. You just like completely killed the immersion for me. You know,
right? You pulled it out with an inappropriate song choice.
Yeah. It's there's a lot of that kind of woven throughout this. Thankfully, it's not the majority of the show, but there's like a good like 3 or 4 parts where it really does that, where it really hammers into like this kind of modern aesthetic for some reason. And I'm like, why? Why is that here? This would be so much better if that wasn't there. But that's like probably my only complaint, and it's tied to the thing I like the most about this series, which is the visual aesthetic. I think it's gorgeous.
Right. Oh yeah. Visually it is gorgeous. I agree with you there.
You got Nicolas Cage as Nicolas Caging the hell out of his Nicolas Cage role.
Yeah, he does a good job with it. He does a good job.
He does go a bit over the top, and it's like, it's to that point where I was questioning myself. I'm like, is this too much, or does this somehow work?
No, it worked for me the entire time. I think
about the part where he's like laying in his chair and he starts doing like his twitching stuff and putting his arms and legs up and stuff like a dead spider.
Right.
And it's kind of like, oh, he's really Nicolas Caging this.
I think he Nicolas Cages it at the appropriate points to be Nicolas Caging it.
I think it was a little bit off-putting at first, and then I got used to it, and I was like, you know, I kind of like, because I like Nicolas Cage. And so his weird eccentricities kind of coming through, I'm like, you know, like at first they were off-putting to me, but then I kind of just went, yeah, you know, I just gotta expect this. This is Nicolas Cage, and just embrace it and enjoy it.
Right, yeah. Yeah, just embrace it. It's enjoyable if you just embrace it. Just embrace the fact that this Ben Reilly is like a very eccentric, weird person. Because he's clearly like written that way.
Yeah, it ended up being like something I end up really liking by the end. And yeah, like I said, some of the film noir-esque shots are just absolutely stunning. I was kind of like entranced when they had the whole part with the mirrors in the last episode.
Oh yeah, the mirrors. That was a good trick.
Yeah, it is a very cool trick, but it's very old, like fashion trick, you know?
Yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely.
I think that's kind of what really worked for me on that. What did you think about the story of this?
I thought it was solid. No, I thought it was very solid. It's not like a super deep or complicated story.
It's very tropey, but it kind of should be.
Right, yeah, it's very tropey. Unfortunately, there's no mystery. They don't do a mystery story, which, retrospect, is kind of disappointing.
Mm-hmm.
There's no, like, real mystery to solve. It's mainly intrigue involving this mobster, Silvermane, and the singer Cat and her boyfriend, who is the Sandman. Flint, that's his name. Thank you. Yeah. So it's basically revolves around those three characters.
And Ben Reilly, Nicolas Cage's character, is just kind of like stuck into it. Yeah. Yeah,
he's pulled into it because he's working this case about this guy who can set stuff on fire. He burnt down like Silvermane's mansion. Silvermane had a guy hire him and another private investigator to find this person. And that's how he gets pulled into Kat Hardy's world, because he goes to her club, sees her sing. He has a run-in with Flint Marko, and then, like, after that confrontation, Flint goes missing, and that's when Kat visits him and hires him to find Flint, find out what happened with Flint, and that is, like, the crux of, like, how he gets drawn into, like, this entire, drama.
It goes back into his past, too, because it goes into, like, the origin of all of these people's powers, but also his own powers.
Yes.
Which everybody has these powers, but they're very unstable. Except him. His powers are stable, and it's because his were kind of secondhand.
It's kind of interesting how they subverted the typical radioactive spider story. His story is like, he was kind of bitten by a spider. Like you said, it goes back to World War I, where he's serving as a soldier, and there's these POWs. Flint was one of the POWs, as well as the fireman, Jimmy Addison, who actually, like, ends up getting killed at the beginning of the series. He ends up getting shot by the other detective.
Also, there's two others. Lonnie, who's this, Flint's good friend.
Yes.
And then we also have Dirk, who's kind of this weird, like, Broadway wannabe.
Yeah.
It's like a Broadway wannabe meets Al Capone kind of energy.
Yeah, he's got electrical powers. Mm-hmm. He's not the Shocker, though. He ends up calling himself Megawatt, which I think that's a show invention.
It's either a show invention or maybe it's a character from the actual comic run of Spider-Noir.
I've never heard of a character. Yeah, I've never heard of him, but, like, anyway, get back on track. The whole thing was like, they were POWs in a German camp in World War I, and they were all being experimented on.
Mm-hmm.
And then Ben Reilly's unit comes in there, and they basically rescue them. And there's, like, more people, unnamed characters, that were being experimented on. Most of them died. And he comes across this one man who is basically transforming into a spider. He's
like
horrible.
Big chunks of his body that are like spider-like.
Yeah. He's clearly in pain. He's clearly dying. Ben Reilly gets too close, and he ends up biting Ben Reilly.
Yeah,
and that's how Ben Reilly becomes.
Spider, yeah.
That's his radioactive spider. Yeah, like a hideous mutant, a dying mutant in a POW camp. Yeah.
Yeah. They do like a little bit of old-fashioned film noir version of body horror.
Yes.
Like that episode, and like when you see about like how, the government realized what had happened to him, even the US government, and they were like experimenting on him and cutting him into pieces, and he changed his name to get away from all of that and stuff, and that's why he keeps his identity secret. And it's kind of cool the way they fit everything in together into like a cohesive story. At first, it just seems like he was pushed in, or like he just kind of got roped into this story that existed around him. And then it's like, no, there's like a part of that story that like loops back to his origin.
Yeah, that loops, but yeah, exactly. Because like he is connected to those POWs. He is literally connected to Flint in the end. Because he was at that camp.
Yeah. So it's kind of like, it's a very simplistic story. It's very, very tropey film noir. I mean, Kat Hardy, the singer, is like the cliche femme fatale,
Oh yeah, like very, very obviously. And Kat Hardy, if you didn't know, that's obviously a reference to the Black Cat, Felicia Hardy. Like, it's not subtle. It's interesting because it's Spider-Man, but it's not Spider-Man. It has the elements. It has the familiar elements, the familiar iconography.
You got your web slinging. You got your, like, sarcastic comments during a fight, you know?
But everything is, like, remixed and reimagined to the point where, like, it's not recognizable as the Spider-Man you know.
Mm-hmm. I want to talk about some of the cast here.
Yes.
So, right off the bat, of course, we've got Nicolas Cage.
Obviously.
You know, this is his first TV role, I believe.
Yes, it is. And it's funny, too, because he said in an interview, Breaking Bad convinced him to do this show.
Yeah, he realized what you could do with, like, a longer format storytelling.
Yeah. He said he realized you could do deeper character work in a long format.
Mm-hmm.
He pointed to, like, Breaking Bad having scenes of Walter White just, like, standing there staring at something. You can't get away with doing that in a movie.
Nicolas Cage is like, I want to sit around and stare at things.
Yeah.
Why does he get to sit around and stare at things?
It's more like, yeah, right. It's more like talking about, like, you get to let, like, moments breathe in a long form.
Also got Lamorne Morris is in this. Plays his friend Robbie Robertson.
From New Girl.
Yeah, New Girl. He was also in the most recent season of Fargo. He played a very memorable character.
Oh, that's right. He was the deputy. The trooper, yeah, in Fargo.
Yeah, I can't remember. He had a weird name, but I can't remember it right now.
I really liked his character in Fargo, too.
Another one I didn't notice until I was doing the show notes is that Finn's the main villain. That's Brendan Gleeson, by the way.
Yeah, that's Brendan Gleeson, yeah.
But
he's a great villain, the way they did it.
Yeah, he's kind of like Irish Kingpin.
Yeah.
That's basically what he is. But
although, like, he's more nuanced than Kingpin.
Yeah.
Brendan Gleeson brings, like, a humanity to this character. He's a ruthless gangster, but, like, he's still human.
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting. I don't know, I really liked his performance.
One thing I didn't notice until I was doing the show notes, though, is that his right-hand man at the beginning of the series, he died a lot sooner than I would have thought.
Yeah.
Winston is played by Lucas Haas, who I haven't seen in ages.
Lucas Haas, yeah, I know, right?
I'm like, I knew he looked familiar, but I always picture Lucas as like a kid, you know?
Right. Oh, yeah. And he definitely, like, looks older. He looked the part. That's the thing. But he clearly, like, has an aged face, you know? It's kind of weird to see Lucas Haas looking aged, I guess.
This is like a very Adrian Brody part.
Yes.
This is like you could imagine Adrian Brody in this part, you know? And it's like Lucas Cage did a great job in that. And I'm like, all right, he's got a new feature as being an Adrian Brody type, I guess.
Yeah, I guess so, yeah.
Bob Odenkirk all of a sudden now he's an action star, and Lucas Haas now he's an Adrian Brody.
It's a shame they killed that character off so soon, because that was another character that was interesting that they seemed to, like, give more depth to than they needed to.
Mm-hmm.
Because I kind of painted him as like a fixer and an enforcer for Silvermane, but he is basically his own person. Like, at one point he said, I'd kill you myself if I thought it'd help me. And he wasn't, like, afraid to, like, speak plainly to Silvermane or anything. It was interesting. They did more with that character than they needed to.
Yeah. And they took him out very quickly.
Yes.
I thought it was interesting. I didn't really even write down the actors' names because they're such, like, nothings in the show, but Perry and Pudge, who are kind of like the henchmen, like the generic henchmen.
They're the generic.
The stupid henchmen, you could say.
Yeah, so, like, everything I just said, that's the opposite. That's like, they're nothing characters. They exist.
But they're so film noir tropey.
Yes.
They kind of feel like they're from that era and stuff. Like, I think they're a really good example of, like, how they just nailed the film noir aesthetic with those characters, you know?
Right. Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Flint Marko is played by Jack Huston. He was in Boardwalk Empire. He probably played one of the most memorable and interesting characters in that show. I don't know if you ever watched Boardwalk Empire, but he was the guy that he had returned from the war and, like, half his face was, like, blowing off basically. And so he had this mask over half of his face, this, like, kind of prosthetic fake face. I haven't seen him in too much since then, but it was like, oh, it just kind of fits with his era, because Boardwalk Empire was kind of like around this time too. It was like Prohibition era.
It's interesting because Jack Huston, he has like this very classic old Hollywood style look to him.
Yeah, exactly. Like Boardwalk Empire, which was the last thing I really recognized him from, was also set during Prohibition.
which is pretty funny. He has a appearance.
Yeah. And then another one that I noticed that was interesting, because it's such a small role, is that the rival PI that Silvermane ends up killing, the guy that ends up shooting the fire guy.
Yes.
That's Cameron Britton.
Oh, really?
I don't know if you know this. He was in Umbrella Academy. He was the two guys that were hunting number 5 down from the future.
Oh, yeah.
He was the guy in that, but he was also in Mindhunter. He was the giant serial killer guy. The really, really big guy that, like, had a fascination with the lead character in Mindhunter. You know who I'm talking about?
Yeah, I know who you're talking about.
Ed Kemper. That's it. He played Ed Kemper in Mindhunter, too. So he's somebody I haven't seen kind of in a little bit. So it was interesting seeing him pop up and then just very quickly be gone. Very similar to, like, Lucas Hawes' character. Just he's there and it's like, oh, that's crazy. He's there and then gone, you know?
Yeah, he's gone in, like the second episode?
Yeah.
He's, like, killed off, yeah.
He's barely in the first episode and then he's gone in the second episode.
And then we got, another of the mutations, Lonnie Lincoln. He's befriended by Robbie Robertson. He is also friends with Flint because they were in the same POW camp. And
yeah,
Flint,
all the guys with powers, except for Spider-Man himself, or the Spider as he's called, were in the POW camp, and the Spider rescued them from that camp.
And as Flint is working as muscle for Silvermane, he draws Lonnie into that as well. Mm-hmm. You know,
he's a little bit more reluctant to get involved, but he does.
Yes.
So you have this like spectrum because you have your 3 main guys with power. You don't count Jimmy because he's like dead in the first episode. Don't count Ogden because he's barely in it and his superpower is that he gets old.
Yeah, he just got older, which is like everybody's getting like spider powers, electricity powers. I just aged till I'm like 70 years old and I'm about to die. Like, that's a really shitty power. Like, what the hell? Yeah.
And like all of them are dying. You know? They all have like this limited shelf life because their powers are unstable. And his whole power is that he's dying.
Yeah.
No good end of the stick there for him. But you have this interesting thing with the kind of the 3 main powered baddies here. You have Flint. He is kind of the guy he's honor bound to the main villain of the series. He has this like loyalty because he was taken care of, even though he's being used, but he still feels like loyalty towards that. He's also heavily involved with the Femme Fatale character.
He is the boyfriend and the ultimate love interest of Cat Hardy, who is also like under Silvermane's thumb. Cat is like, she's what you call like kept woman. Silvermane gives her the spot as a singer at his club.
Basically a trophy of his.
Yeah, it's a trophy of his. He gives her all these lavish gifts and stuff.
She's like really a bird in a cage, yeah.
Yeah, she's a bird in a cage.
Yeah.
But Flint is madly in love with her. He will do anything for her.
He's turning her down romantically because he doesn't think there's a life for them together because he's dying.
Yeah,
because he's losing control of his powers. And
yeah, that's why he disappears in the first place, because at the beginning of the series, he has it under control, or so he thinks. And then, like, after his initial encounter with Ben Reilly, it starts getting worse for him. Mm-hmm. And that's why he disappears, because he thinks, things are getting worse with his powers. And he thinks he's dying soon.
And then you contrast that with his friend Lonnie, who's like even more reluctant, even more of a good person character than Flint is. And he ends up kind of being a baddie for a while, but he's like the easiest to turn, basically, back to the good side, you know?
Right, yeah.
He's the one that's kind of not really invested in any of that, or doesn't really have any true loyalty towards Silvermane or anything.
No, he barely even knows Silvermane. He's doing
he thinks he's dying, and he's like, I'm gonna do something with my life before I die, you know?
Right. The ideas that Flint puts in his head, by the way. Lonnie is like dealing with being dealt a shit hand by life, basically based on the fact that he's poor and his race.
Yeah.
You know, like.
He's basically in hiding.
Yeah.
And he's sick of being in hiding, and that's kind of how he gets involved in it. And then you have Dirk Layden, who we mentioned before is kind of the megawatt, he's this weird personality type where he's like the insane one. He's the wild card.
He's a psychopath. He has no loyalty to anybody but himself. Mm-hmm. You know, he's clearly only out for himself. They don't like outright state this at any point, but it's clearly subtext is he's a guy who nobody ever took seriously or looked twice at. He was probably like mocked, and now he has this power and he's gonna lord it over everybody. He's going to be the star of his own story.
he's in a fight with Ben Reilly and they're like, you don't have to be doing this. So what are you talking about? He's like, I'm, on Broadway and I'm the star of the show or something.
Right, yeah. They don't really go into, like, his background or why he's the way he is or anything. He's probably, like, the least explored of, like, these three people. But you can tell the subtext is there.
Yeah, and he's one of the more interesting ones because he is a total wild card, and he does actually turn on Finn, not to the other side, but to, like, his own devices.
Yeah, exactly. Because, like, ultimately, he's in it for himself.
Mm-hmm.
He was working for Silvermane for as long as that served him. He was listening to Flint for as long as that served him. But as soon as it no longer suited him, he went against both of them.
Yeah, so I liked his end too. That was like the most brutal.
oh yeah, like Ben Reilly just web slinging him into that moving train.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was like, how are they going to do this? Because Ben Reilly's not going to take a dose of the cure for his condition.
No, they're going to leave it open to do more with that
I thought
character.
They were going to make it so that it was going to go down to where there was only one dose left, and he was going to have it go to Flint, but then Flint was going to end up using it on Dirk to stop his momentum,
Yeah, no, I don't. No.
Like he was going to sacrifice his own happiness in order to stop him, or that's what I thought it was going to go. I kept going like, how is this going to break down?
The answer is simple. You just kill Dirk, and you don't have to worry about it.
Yeah. Which is what ended up happening. So
yeah.
The majority of the story there, we got a weird, it's crucial to the plot, but it was kind of like weird the way it just kind of came in and was done with very quickly. Story about this doctor trying to create this cure that we'd mentioned. And her son was one of the POWs, the one we mentioned, whose super amazing power is aging.
Yeah.
But yeah, you get this moment, and that's where you have to get the femme fatale betraying the lead, which is another common trope of film noir.
Yeah.
The femme fatale is going to betray you.
Yes, exactly. And that episode was the episode with the body horror and stuff, where, like, the doctor has Ben Reilly captured, and she's experimenting on him.
Yeah,
and that was, like, where they go...
like, cutting into his liver and stuff, and...
Yes. That's the episode where they go into his origin, and you get the crazy spider guy and everything.
And you get the backstory about how he was experimented on by the people before.
Right.
U.S. government.
Yeah, by the U.S. government.
Yeah, so that is kind of the long and short of it, I guess, for Spider-Noir. What are your thoughts in general overall?
I thought it was solid. I thought it was a solid show. I enjoyed it front to back. Wasn't my favorite show ever, but, like, I thought they did a good job with it. I guess, like, my question, if they made a season 2, would you watch it?
Yeah, I think I really enjoyed... I like the characters. See, so the thing about when you do a TV show,
I like
more than like a movie, is that you need to like, in some way you need to like the characters. You either need to like them or you need to like hating them, But you need to be like attracted to the characters in some way.
That's the thing, like, I like the characters. I like Ben Reilly, not just like Ben Reilly. I liked Robbie Robertson. I think Lamorne Morris, like, did a fantastic job with that role.
Janet Ruiz was very sympathetic.
Yeah, as the secretary. Very funny, too.
Mm-hmm.
At times,
even the newspaper boy, very not in it that much, but he was like a very film noir trope, like the young kid that.
Yeah, he was very funny. They did a great job with, like, Silvermane. I thought, like, they did fantastic. Brendan Gleeson. I mean, obviously, he's an extremely talented actor.
Mm-hmm.
Flint Marco, Lonnie Lincoln. They created, like, all these characters that, like, were interesting and I felt, like, entertained by.
Kat Hardy was like, classic femme fatale.
Oh, yeah, she was great. And that's the reason I enjoyed the show, because, like, narratively, plot-wise, it was pretty thin.
Yeah.
But, like, the character work really carried it. That's why I always say, like, that's the most important, that's more important than anything. Yeah.
Well, that's also, like, a very film noir thing. Like, film noir was always about, like, having these very troubled but relatable characters. The plots were always kind of ran into each other. You watch a bunch of film noir, it's, like, basically the same plot, like, with slight variations in each one.
Right.
And the differences are in like kind of the subtext. There's like, if you really read into the movies, you can find like all sorts of like interesting theories and ideas that go behind those movies. But like the base plot that you're exploring is always very kind of paper thin almost. Very light detective story. Nothing really too interesting in that sense. But it's all about the aesthetic structure. And it's all about like having these characters that you can relate to that are very flawed, you know? I think film noir is like the introduction in like cinema of like anti-hero type characters. I don't really think that was too much of a thing before film noir happened. So that's a big part of it too, is you can have a character that's like, oh, he's the hero of our story, but he like drinks too much and he's like easily misled and he gets himself into a bad situation and he's not necessarily the greatest person. It's that very like anti-hero archetype. It kind of like its origin is kind of in film noir. And I think they kind of were able to honor that. I don't think you could make like a really fascinating, interesting plot and keep the aesthetic and match it and keep that tone right. Cause that wouldn't really be film noir if that's what you did.
Right,
So,
yeah.
So I think that was like interesting. I don't know where they would go with the season 2. That would be interesting. I don't know if we need a season 2.
I don't know. I don't
kind of
think we
lean
do.
away from what you would, the film noir tropes at that point, I think, you know?
Right.
Because he's kind of, the character's found kind of his purpose. If he's not troubled and without purpose, then he's not really a film noir character anymore. But yeah, I mean, I dug that. I'm a big fan of film noir. So like I said, I love the aesthetic and stuff. A big part of the aesthetic of film noir, like the harsh shadows and like the weird lighting and all that kind of stuff that we kind of take for granted when we see like film noir now and stuff. And it was really inventive when it was happening in like the 50s when film noir was new. A lot of that comes from the fact that film noir was kind of like the horror films of their day. They were very low budget. And the reason why you have all that crazy lighting is because they didn't have that many lights. So they would do these crazy shots where it's like, oh, it's like the shot of a door, like the light from the door coming like through a creak in a slot in the door, and there's light coming through, and that's what's highlighting the character's eyes, and everything else is in shadows. And you get this like super dynamic shot. Well, why did they do that? It's because they could only afford like one light. So they did this like instead of doing like a whole 3-point lighting rig setup, because back then when film noir started, it was like movies were basically kind of what Bollywood is now, just these really big musical numbers, like Singing in the Rain and stuff like that. That's what like the other non-film noir movies were. And those were like big budget productions and everything is like evenly, immaculately lit. And film noir was like, okay, well, we don't have much money, so we need to we only have one light to use. We can't do a 3-point lighting setup. How are we going to use this to make like some kind of an impact? And to me, that's like very similar to what horror films ended up being, which is also kind of low budget, but also an excuse. If you're going to be low budget, then you might as well be as experimental and interesting as possible.
Right. Oh, yeah.
So I really like that it kind of honored that aspect of it in like the cinematography and stuff. Even though, like I said, I could go without the weird little modern influence touches. It just kind of felt unnecessary. Kind of took me out of it. But overall, I think it's just a beautiful, beautiful looking film noir show. Anybody who watched it in color, you are the shame of this world.
No, you're not. You are beautiful people for watching a good show.
You watched it incorrectly by watching it in color. But that is it for this episode of our podcast and our full spoiler segment. Next week, we are going to talk about Never Change in full spoilers. This is a movie that we talked about recently. We discussed the trailer for it just recently, and we discussed it on last week because it was on our On the Horizon segment that it was coming out. This is the one we've mentioned before. It's about tornado hits a high school and the graduating class doesn't get to graduate. And then it takes the absolutely absurd premise that like, what is it, 16 years later or something, they all have to go back and finish their last year of school and do everything exactly the way it was, including like outdated productions of like a musical or something that the school is putting on. And it's just like really, really absurdist comedy with like this high concept idea or something. And I dig that. I've been saying all along, we need more comedy. In particular, we need more like just kind of ridiculous, absurdist comedy. That's why I was kind of happy to see stuff like Naked Gun come back, where it was kind of going more into spoof territory. But
right. Oh, yeah.
Never Change. It's not really a spoof, but it is definitely an absurdist comedy. So that's what we're going to be talking about next week. It's available to watch on Hulu if you want to watch along with us. Until then, you can follow me on Blue Sky and Twitter. I am at Tyson Gifford. You can follow Will on those platforms. He is at FoxOHero. You can check out our website, thetotalscreen.blogspot.com. If you go to our website and open up a container store for any of our podcast episodes and scroll down to the bottom paragraph, you can find all the relevant links to our SoundCloud page, our RSS feed, all that stuff's there. So check that out. You can also subscribe to our podcast in your favorite podcast client of choice, like Apple Podcasts or Pocket Casts, and the entire backlog of our podcasts, as well as additional content, is available on our YouTube channel, so you can check that out there too. Thank you, everybody, for listening. Good night.
Good night.
Thank you for listening to the OnScreen podcast, the official podcast of The Little Screen. Visit our website at thelittlescreen.com. This podcast can be found on any major podcast client, including Pocket Cast and Apple Podcast. The entire backlog of this podcast and other content can be found on our YouTube channel.